5 dating questions to spot an avoidant or a secure person when you're dating early on. So let's be honest. Dating can feel like a minefield when you've got an anxious attachment style. You meet someone and you start getting attached, and later on you only realize, hey, they're actually emotionally unavailable. Then they pull away and you start overthinking everything again, and suddenly you're stuck in this anxious spiral all over again. So today I want to give you 5 questions you can ask on your dates or on your first date to help you spot the avoidant or even the secure person right away, early on, to help save yourself emotional pain, heartbreak, and even time. Because if you're like me in your mid-30s or maybe even older, you don't want to lose any more time on this. And the goal isn't to judge anyone, but it's to build awareness so you stop chasing people who make you feel confused, who only give you breadcrumbs, who don't treat you like you're good enough, like you're the prize, and start investing in the ones who actually will make you feel seen, calm, safe, and a priority. So are you ready for question 1? By the way, if you're new here, I am Yula. I'm the Anxious to Secure coach, and welcome to the Anxious to Secure podcast. Let's go. Disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or doctor. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or heal any mental health condition. If you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with severe mental health challenges, always seek professional advice. Question 1 is, do you find it easy to talk about your feelings and to open up to people? I'm going to give you some answers and hints what might reveal they're actually anxious attached, securely attached, avoidant attached, or even more disorganized attached to understand the bigger picture here. So what would an anxious answer might look like? Someone who has an anxious attachment style. So they usually open up very quickly, right? They maybe even trauma dump because they're trusting other people more than they trust themselves. So sometimes they overshare because they're really in it for the deeper connections. They usually don't like surface level chit chat, so they probably struggle with dating if it only comes to just surface level talks, and they really crave deep closeness and deep connection. If they may be avoidant, they'll often struggle to share really how they feel deep down. They don't talk about the deep stuff, what is really vulnerable for them. They'll stay vague, maybe even change the topic when it comes to topics that are harder for them to open up to, about emotional topics, their deepest fears and desires, without getting too emotional. If they're more securely attached, they'll talk about their feelings when it's natural, not too fast and not too guarded either. They get to know a person and know when it feels right to open up about certain topics. On the first date, they're not going to trauma dump you. They're not going to share about everything, but they're just going to get to know you first a little bit. But again, this question still is a good indication of what they're actually sharing with you, of what kind of person they are. And then we have the disorganized attachment style, who's usually overall a mix between anxious and avoidant. So they might open up first either very fast, but then as soon as something feels off, they might pull back very fast and completely ghost you or completely feel ashamed, feeling, oh yeah, they should have never trusted you. They're like between this push and pull a little bit. So they might say, with the right person, they are able to, open up about their feelings, but it's hard for them in general to trust other people. They deep down do have a fear of being vulnerable and really are more guarded as well. So they might say that they struggle to open up about certain topics, and they're guarding themselves and their vulnerability with maybe jokes and being sarcastic. Something to notice again, depending on the answer that they give might not be always, of course, how they will show up later on. So it's one thing to ask them questions and actually to see how will they show up on the date actually. So you don't want to be completely hyper vigilant and analyzing everything they say. Really relax as well into your grounded best version of yourself during those dates. But anyway, Second question to get an indication, are they more avoidant? Are they more secure? What attachment style are you dating? To ask the question, would you say you fall in love very quickly and stay in relationships very long? So are you a relationship girl or guy? Or are you more the person who is in many situationships or prefers like casual dating? This is a huge indication as well of what kind of attachment style they have, if they have a fear of commitment or if they're more anxious. Because if they're having an anxious attachment style, they'll usually say they'll fall in love very hard, very fast. They're highly romantic. They're a relationship girl or guy, and they're rarely single for long. They're always in relationships, always in a deep connection, because if you have an anxious attachment style, you know that you would rather be with someone who kind of fills your cup rather than being alone. And if they're more avoidant, they might say they prefer to stay single. If they haven't found the right person, they really love, being adventurous and don't like being trapped, don't like commitment, even though they might not say this officially. So what they might maybe more saying is, yeah, they like casual relationships, or they like being independent. Maybe they just talk about their past relationships. They say, you know what, they had a few long-term relationships, but they might have also had very long periods of being single, or also had the past of just situationships or just casual hookups here and now and there. And it is not always easy for them to fall in love very hard, very fast. So this is more an indication of that they're avoidant. Then for a securely attached person, they probably would say something like, they're happy of being alone and single, but they're also very happy in a relationship. And it really depends on if they find the right person, and they're not forcing anything. So they probably had very deep, long-term committed relationships, but they probably also had periods where they were single, and where they're okay being single. So they're not overly romanticizing the idea of being single, like maybe the avoidant would be more, but they're really able to have a balance. They're okay and healthy and secure having a single life, but then they're also, when they're finding the right partner for them, they are then also be really happy and able to create this secure relationship with this person. So that is a good indication of realizing, what, they talk about their exes in a good way, and you can see, there's both there. They don't rush into anything, and they're able to take time. Now, the disorganized attached person might often more say, they can fall in love very hard and very fast, but then they might have also gone through really strong heartbreaks, lots of ups and downs, more like roller coaster relationships, lots of maybe drama. Maybe they have been really in abusive relationships, people who really manipulated them, gaslit them. So because, that's kind of where their past now is being repeated for themselves, because they grew up usually around fear, unsafe upbringing more. Now this kind of being repeated in the kind of partner and relationships they are attracting to. Either it's very chaotic, or lots of arguments and conflicts, or kind of abuse or substance abuse, that kind of behavior. So they might be in long-term relationships, but it's very more like ups and downs, and it's never really stable, healthy relationships if it's long. And deep down, there's always this like fear of commitment and being vulnerable. So I would say not many very long-term, healthy, stable relationships, but more like they're trying, they want love, but then it's always, they're attracting the wrong kind of love for themselves as well. So they're sabotaging themselves somehow, subconsciously. Yes, in short, they will probably give you the answer somehow like they had relationships, they're falling in love hard, but also they have this barrier up of who they can trust based on their past. Question number 3 you can ask gently during your dates is, what's one of your biggest fear in relationships? And that is something you might not always want to ask on date 1, maybe more on date 2 or 3, but I think it's great to just be honest about yourself, and just ask also some of the deeper questions. Keep a mixture of, what is this person actually meeting my needs, my core values, and asking some of these questions here, but then also keeping some of the lighter questions up. So again, this question you don't want to necessarily always ask on date one, but you can if you think this is the right moment. But don't just, interview them, like, or ask these 5 questions all in a row, by the way. So having said that, if they're anxiously attached, they might say something like, yeah, their biggest fear in a relationship is being abandoned, being left, something down the lines that the trust would be broken, that they will be cheated on. Usually they think, okay, if I will be abandoned, if my partner doesn't give me the love and reassurance and affection, if they're only giving me breadcrumbs, then that means I am not good enough. I am too much. So this is also a fear. However, this is a little bit more subconscious. So the obvious fear, they're probably going to say, I will be left, I will be abandoned, I can't trust my partner, I'm not safe. So emotional safety is a huge factor for them. And you might probably know this because you're probably anxiously attached, that you can't really count on them. So for the avoidant attached person, it's more the biggest fear of really losing independence, not being really allowed to be who they are, feeling trapped, feeling smothered, being told what to do, being micromanaged, something like this. It's a very good indication of understanding, hey, are they more avoidant? Are they more emotionally unavailable? What's going on here? You want someone who is very committed and focused on just one person. And I think it's important to already notice and mention these things during the first dates. So you push off any people who are not aligned with this, who are emotionally unavailable. And if you want someone who's secure and is able to talk about feelings, mention all of this, that you want this. And a securely attached person would probably say they don't have huge major fears, but then it always depends on, we're all on a spectrum. So the securely attached person could be leaning a little bit more anxious or a little bit more avoidant. So it always depends on the personal experiences. Then it's usually more like a sign that they're more securely attached and they just have smaller fears depending on their life experiences. Yeah, that maybe let's say they're already in their 60s in their dating and they're really worrying about being alone or dying alone. And, that's not just because they're maybe anxious attached, because dying alone and the fear of being alone, that is a real fear if you're getting older and older. But it's also possible that if you're secure and if you're also already a little bit older, 60 or 70, that you are okay of being alone, but you're still going into the dating, not from a place of, I don't want to be alone, but it would be just nice to have someone with me. Because there's a huge difference of, like, say, I have a fear of being alone or a fear of being abandoned when you're in your 30s or 40s, or when you're already in your 60s or 70s or 80s, right? Because, yeah. And then someone with a more disorganized attachment style might say they are afraid about being abandoned and not trusting people, but also at the same time about letting down their guard, about being vulnerable, about being too close, because they don't want to get hurt, because they have experienced so much hurt and pain in their past. So they do want a connection, they want it, but they're afraid of being hurt, abandoned. So they build up this wall as well. They have both of this. They really want closeness, but they're really afraid of it. So it's like this, let me try and then push back a little bit. And then question 4 you can ask on your date is, how do you usually cope with conflict? And the anxious attached person might say they would really want to talk things out in that moment. They can't really sit on things. They're all about having to fix it right now. Even if the other person, let's say the avoidant, really wants more space and wants to forget everything and sweep things under the rug, the anxious wants to talk it out right now into detail, and are very uncomfortable with distance, physical or emotional distance. So this could then be one of the signs you could recognize someone who has an anxious attachment style. Someone who is more avoidant, they might say they don't really want to deal with conflict. They really want to avoid it. They think talking about it doesn't make any sense, and they really need space to think for themselves, to just, to come back maybe later at another time, but they really want to avoid it because they think there's the point of it, because the partner is always right anyway. So they are the deflect and avoid and downplay the situation a little. And maybe they'll also say, my partner always gets very sensitive and emotional. I don't know how to cope with that really. Oh, by the way, for the anxious might also say they also want to kind of avoid conflict because they get very emotional. And that is very hard to handle because the other person, the avoidant, doesn't really soothe them. I used to have an anxious attachment style as well. So I can say for myself, a conflict is something very hard, very challenging. And now, only over years of working on this, I'm much more confident around conflict, especially working with my partner on this. And I think it also all came from, somehow through my past that maybe subconsciously my brain thought conflict meant divorce, and it's very painful, and I didn't know how to handle it because my parents eventually got divorced and there was conflict going on, and I don't really remember the core memories of when they were arguing, but I must have, because I was very hypersensitive, I still am, must have done something to me where I think conflict means something very dangerous. And because I had this huge fear of being abandoned, it just makes sense that every time when I'm supposed to say something or when there's a threat to our relationship, it means oh my God, does it mean I'm safe now? Does it mean our relationship is in danger? And then when I then feel emotional, because I'm a very emotional girl, I cry and I don't know how to self-soothe. This is on top of it, where I feel okay, why is my partner not comforting me? So some of the answers of the person to spot someone who's more anxiously attached, they might say, they don't know how to feel better during conflict because they're very emotional. They're like a crier, like I am, and it's very painful when their partner doesn't soothe them. They feel very alone. A secure attached person might say something like they are able to talk through the conflict with their person. If their partner needs a little bit space, they're able to take space and take some time out and then get back to the conflict once the nerves have calmed down a bit. Because when we're in a triggered state and when we're emotionally flooded, we can't think logically. Our logical brain is switched off and we would just say something mean or hurtful. So the secure person knows when some of us is flooded, even if it's just a partner, it's good even to take a break. So the securely attached person might rather say, you know what, I'm okay with taking a break and coming back later to the topic and then making a attempt for repair to say, I've hurt you in this way and what is it you need from me to get to a point of that we can move forward so that this doesn't happen again. They're able to take accountability from their side as well, because it always takes two. So they're very much able to adjust. And then the disorganized attached person would maybe describe it a little bit more like flipping between maybe fawning, so wanting to people please in the moment and to just make everything go away because it feels the safest, needing space and pull away completely, or even really wanting to talk it out, having to solve it right now, very much back and forth. So it really depends. And then the last question is question number 5. What makes you feel safe in your relationship? That's also something really big. I think that is not really asked often enough. And I would say the anxious attached person would say something down the lines between consistency, closeness, of reassurance, words of affirmation, affection, feeling like a priority in a relationship. You can always rely on this person, so there's no secrets. Feeling like, when you really need them the most, they will be there for you. The avoidant will probably say it would make them feel safe to be able to to be respected in terms of if they need space, they can have the space and the independence without feeling pressure to show up in a specific way how other people would want them to, without feeling trapped, keeping their own hobbies or things for themselves. I think that's very important for them. The securely attached person will probably say, communication, consistency, shared goals. Probably also a balance between doing things together as a team, as a couple, but also then having things for yourself. Because it's very healthy, to keep up your own routines and your own schedule and your own hobbies and your own friends, and then come together from this place of what can we do together at the weekend, let's say Saturday afternoon, after we, maybe spend the Saturday morning separate. Someone who has a disorganized attachment style, they would probably feel very safe with closeness as well. They want closeness, feel affection, affirmation, but they do feel it at the same time. Communication is very important, and they just really want to trust the other person. A disorganized attached person have been through so much trauma in their past that it's no wonder why they struggle to trust and open up to the new person. So like consistency, safety, closeness and love is just important for them, being a priority, being really deeply understood. In the end, all we ever want is just love, right? Yeah. And by the way, a bonus question, I have not really thought about it before, but it's the most obvious question, but it's more like a bonus question because not everyone is going to give you the right answer or any answer. And that is actually, what is your attachment style? And do you even know what attachment styles are? I think that can be a game changer for your dating, because I'm not going to say don't date the person if they don't know about attachment theory, but it can give you just the answer right away if they know about attachment theory. First of all, yes, they could lie to you. If they are not securely attached, they know exactly they're avoidant or disorganized attached, they could lie to you. But again, in the end, you will always want to ask just questions and then see how do their words meet their actions in the dating process, and you will figure it out as well. But if you already know, you know what, you're going to ask the questions, and if the person already gives you an answer, amazing. And if they don't know about attachment theory, about self-development, if this is not their thing, that's okay as well. At least I think it's the most straightforward thing you can ask. And the thing is, most people show up in their polished version in early dating. So attachment patterns, however, really reveal themselves after the honeymoon phase, once the real emotional investment has really started. And that's why a lot of people get really resentful afterwards, after they fell in love, especially if you have the anxious attachment style, you're attaching so fast, often with the idea of this person rather with who they actually are. So it's not just important to ask these questions and to figure out slowly, hey, who am I actually dating? But most importantly, to become securely attached, because the more securely attached you are, the less you have to actually check out, hey, are they avoidant? Are they secure? Because you naturally are already drawn to the secure and calm and consistent person naturally, because energies always attract each other. So don't fire all of these questions all at once and just pretend this is like an interview. Have also fun during the dating process. Just pick, a few that really feel naturally during that date and just see if their words follow their actions along this journey. The goal isn't to interview someone, it's really to feel and get a sense for who they actually are and if you can relate to them. Because when you can spot avoidant patterns or secure patterns early, you stop chasing mixed signals and start creating space for someone who's emotionally available, who's secure and ready to build something real with you. So if you love this episode, I have lots of more episodes. Check them out. I'm so happy you are here with me. If you want to work with me on building and creating a secure attachment style, the most important work I believe you can do for yourself, for your health, and even to create a longer, happier relationship and life, then check out the links below. I have a subscription where you can work with me via video calls or even via phone. And I do WhatsApp or Telegram coaching as well, where you can talk or text back and forth, and we can create long-term goals or work on your anxiety in the moment. So check them out. I only have a few spots available each month, and they're going fast. I also have mini courses if you want to work on your overthinking in your relationship, especially if you have a partner who's avoidant attached, Or I have a mini course on the text anxiety. If you're someone who's overthinking text of what they've said, and if you're chasing reassurance and wanting them to text you or call you back more often, that is a problem because you're reinforcing your anxiety. You show your brain and your nervous system what is safe through your behaviors. So you need to start to react differently to your anxious brain and show yourself what is safe and what is not. Because most of the time, if you have an anxious attachment style, you are already safe, but your brain thinks everything else is a threat. When they don't text you, when they text you something that is not as ideal, and they don't give you enough reassurance or words of affirmations or quality time, then you think there's something wrong. And we want to work on that to teach our brain that we are already safe, to heal our abandonment wound, to teach ourselves that we are already worthy, so we can ease our anxiety and feel grounded and relaxed and stop being in fight or flight all the time, because long term, this will impact not just your mental health, but also your physical health. So again, check out the links in the resources, and thank you so much for being here. Remember, change in your relationship starts with you. Thought by thought, action by action, and now episode by episode. Lots of love. Yula. Bye-bye.